You are listening to the Ready PDM Network.
This episode is brought to you by Under 10 Consulting. For many organizations, it seems products get released by individual heroics. Yet most organizations need a small number of living documents, fewer than 10, to manage their products and services. Contact Under 10 for a product playbook designed specifically for your organization.
Are you ready?
Oh, I always tell my students, follow your bliss.
Follow your bliss?
Your bliss, where the deep sense of being in form and going where your body and the soul want to go. When you have that feeling, then stay with it and don't let anyone throw you off.
Sure I am that this day, now, we are the masters of our fate. That the task which has been set us is not above our strength. That its pangs and toils are not beyond our endurance.
Don't be mean. We don't have to be mean. Because, remember, no matter where you go, there you are.
If I could offer you only one tip for the future, sunscreen would be it. The long-term benefits of sunscreen have been proved by scientists, whereas the rest of my advice has no basis more reliable than my own meandering experience. I will dispense this advice now.
Compassion and greed. And we all have those two sides of us, and that we have to make sure that those two sides of us are in balance.
Yes, Jedi strength flows from the Force, but beware of the dark side.
Travel. Accept certain inalienable truths. Prices will rise, politicians will philander, you too will get old. And when you do, you'll fantasize that when you were young, prices were reasonable, politicians were noble, and children respected their elders. Respect your elders.
Your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path. And that will make all the difference. Sometimes life's going to hit you in the head with a brick. Don't lose faith. I'm convinced that the only thing that kept me going was that I loved what I did.
Hello, Ready Product Radioheads, and welcome to a special bonus episode to kick off 2016. The final question we ask each of our guests is always the same. If you could go back 10 or 15 years and give some advice to your younger self, what advice would you give and why? As we all make our plans for 2016, I thought it might be of interest to compile a special episode containing all of our 2015 guests' answers to this question. Even if you aren't in the early stages of your career, the advice contained in these answers is good for all of us. Continuous improvement is something we're all focused on, so warm wishes for a productive and prosperous 2016, and enjoy the show. Let's shift a little bit here, and if you could go back again, thinking and supporting our user audience that are on their journey, if you could go back to the Kim Phelan. Applying for your first product manager role, knowing what you know now, learning what you've learned, what's kind of the top three pieces of advice you would give to them other than maybe enjoy the ride because it goes by pretty fast.
Sure.
What would you say to them?
Get out of the office more.
Yeah.
I look back like this. It's funny, when I started at Clearfit, I was like, this time, it's not going to happen to me this time. And because it's so easy to get caught up in the culture of the company you're at and not do enough customer visits. Yeah. Even when, I did it enough, but I could have done it more. And I've done it more here than I have with any other role. That I would definitely say that right off the bat. Just, make sure you put that as a priority. It's the thing that slides when you get busy. Yeah, yeah. And
it's that gravitational force, too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's so much to
You're getting sucked into the vortex at any given point in time. Yeah. But that's the thing. that's the thing that's going to make you excel as a product manager. And then I also would say is be a collaborator, not a barrier. I have a mantra which I live by, which is you will never be a blocker to the dev team, ever. Like I stand by that because they are a very expensive team that wants to run as fast as they can, and I need to unblock them all the time, not block them. And then the other thing is to build bridges with other departments. I think that probably a lot of the success that I had during my career was, but like most of the sales guys that I have known in my career would be like, I loved working with Kim.
Yeah, right.
And it so easily can be an adversarial relationship. And how do you build bonds with the sales team or the
Okay, where you are right now, if you were to go back and talk to the 20 to 25-year-old Alan Armstrong, what advice would you give your younger self? Knowing what you know now, learning what you've learned.
Well, some of them I'm not going to say out loud.
Of course, yeah. So what you're comfortable sharing.
Some of that advice. You know, I one of my best bosses. I've had a lot of really great bosses over the years. One of my really favorite people in the world is Larry Humphreys, and he took over Citraka in 2000 and sold it to Quest, and still at Dell Software now, which is Quest Software, and he's one of the leaders there. Anyways, Larry used to say the most important trait in an executive is humility. My first reaction to when you said, what advice would I give the 25 years old? I was like, go for it more, be afraid less, all these really sort of positive achieving things. And it's not that those aren't true, and I want to, I have kids now, and I'm encouraging them, and when I've coached youth groups and soccer teams, and I'm always trying to really get them to stand in their person and be authentically who they are. I also think that a real good dose of humility and just sort of like life is about more than just products and just companies and whatever else. You gotta live well, and develop relationships with those people you work with. I mean, if I had known I was going to know you for 20 years, I might have been nicer to you, I mean.
That's a good point.
But, relationships matter and they last, and reputations matter and you last. Another great boss that I worked for in the Bay Area is named Dick Williams. He said, your reputation takes a lifetime to create, and it can be destroyed in minutes. Yeah, that's a good seconds, point. And so integrity is just so crucial, and the relationships that you build are so crucial. And it's not that you don't want to sort of step out and do bold things, because you do, but do it in relationship.
Good. Yeah, that's good advice. I'll ask the question this way: if you could go back 15 or 20 years and talk to your younger self, the young ball just looking out, maybe coming out of university, looking at options and whatnot, what business advice would you give to yourself, and why?
That's a great question. I mean, it always looks so much easier from here, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I have the benefit of experience, which means some successes and a whole whack of failures. And one should caution oneself in saying, I wish I didn't fail, because that's what we learned.
Right.
But I think the one thing that I wish I did more of when I was younger as a product manager at the beginning of my career was to build a story in my head for what the borders and edges of the business were. And how do I explain the business in one sentence and then test everything against that? Like everyone else, there were times when I just myopically got stuck in what I was doing that one day and missed the broader context, which doesn't just mean sort of market analysis, but the broader organizational context or philosophical context or cost context. That happened to me a few times, and now I realize how I would think about those things differently now versus then. So I think about the kind of mentorship that I offer new product managers and people wanting to go in the role, and my students. in questioning, well, what do you think this really means? And if we do this, how do we know we're going to be successful? Or what do you think the implications of that are? I would love to be able to mentor myself that way, my younger self, and some of the product decisions that I made accordingly.
20 years, if you were to project 20 years in the future, what are some of the accomplishments and milestones, from your business career that you'd like to have looked back on and felt proud of? What are some of the things that 20-year in the future Dorina would look back and say, yeah, I'm glad I did that, and feeling happy with what you've accomplished?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and I think that ideally everyone does this and sort of like looks forward and then imagine, like, again, it's the big picture, the end goal, and then everything you do has to like sort of like
work back from
backwards, and sort of like try to make create your path. When I look forward 20 years from now, I definitely see myself as someone who's shipped a number of great products. So hopefully that's the case, and that's how that's really what I want to be able to, like, that's the way that I want to contribute to the society, is not just beautiful products, but also really creating something that's useful and creates value for perhaps an industry and the type of the customer base that is underserved and does not get enough sort of love from technology community. And that's something I definitely want to be able to say. And also, and hopefully these two things come together, I definitely want to have experienced starting my own company and growing it and really taking people on with me on this journey, because I think of this as not just you can build a product, but if you build a great product as well as create an amazing company culture and do it with people who you really enjoy working with and people you can learn from, that's the ultimate goal. And then sharing your lessons and mentoring others. So it's definitely like creating awesome products and building great.
So besides some stock tips, I think one of the things that I think I recognized 10 or 15 years ago was that a lot of success and a lot of not just personal success but kind of organizational success is relationship building and kind of those interpersonal soft sort of skills. And I think I realized that, but I think if there's anything I'd have to go back and say, just kind of emphasize that. It's funny, I've seen organizations where they've got good intellectual property and they've got smart people and good technical skills, but the kind of interpersonal relationships are really get in the way. So I think and a lot of people talk about the soft skills of product management, right? It's not just, you can write a business case and do a bit of analysis, but part of it is how do you orchestrate all these different people within the organization? How do you convince executives to fund your thing? How do you convince salespeople that your product is important enough for them to pay attention to it, even if they can hit quota without selling it? I think all those sort of things, not just for personal success, but also I think just for the ability to kind of create a good output at the end of the day. I think I think I recognize that and I put some emphasis on it, but I think I would just reinforce that.
If you were to go back and talk to your 20 or 25-year-old self, that Greek language major, if I remember correctly, what advice, learning what you've learned in your business career, what advice would you give to that 20 or 25-year-old Nigel Beck?
Well, there's two kinds of advice, right? There's the things that we could never predict that would happen, but knowing that they've happened, you would help people do certain things. And then there's the more general stuff. So let's stick to the more general stuff. I think, I think people should do their highest risk things within the set of things that they'd like to do as soon as possible, because the sort of opportunity costs of those not working out are at their lowest. obviously everybody has different risk tolerances. You might, even though you're earlier in your career, you might have, fewer resources from a family standpoint, or need to support people to pay off debts or whatever. So your definition of high risk might not be the same as the other guys. But it's not the other guy's definition that matters. It's your own definition. Do the highest risk things on your list. Some of those things maybe you realize at the beginning or halfway through you don't have the skills to do. So go get the skills and come back to them if in fact you still want to do them.
Yep.
But I think that's super important, because those are the things that, like I said, first, you can afford to take the risk, and second, that may bloom into being the things that you're most passionate about. And people are always going to be most successful at the things that they're most passionate about.
If you were to look back, let's say 10 years to a younger Sasha 10 years ago, what business advice would you give to somebody looking to get into technology product management based on what you've learned in the past 10 years? What advice would you give them?
That's a great question.
Or yourself, really?
Yeah.
Your younger self.
Well, I'm 35 today.
Okay.
I completed my Bachelor of Engineering out of Carleton University here in Ottawa at the age of 23.
Okay.
I did a co-op program, and I started my career off as a technical engineer. I spent some time coding. I spent some time in product support. And I think the advice I'd give to folks, younger product managers who are contemplating getting into product management, is avoid the temptation to get into the business side or the product management side too early. Paying your dues and understanding the technical side, having coded or done some Q&A or testing or product support goes a long way, because for folks who are ready to go do their MBA right after their undergrad, and haven't really had that experience, struggle, because product management is really about the experiences you've had. It's about being able to blend the business acumen as well with the technical acumen. And it's really difficult as a product manager if you've never really paid your dues and had a technical job before, because you don't want to be the type of product manager that comes in that struggles with understanding the market, where the products are heading, with roadmaps and how the internal mechanics of research and development and testing and engineering work. And so, if I had to go back, 10 years, back in my past, I'd probably say I probably would have waited a little bit longer before I jumped in to do my MBA and pursue a career in product management. I'd probably spent about 5 years in my career on the technical side. I think a couple more years in a couple different roles would have helped. But it's not to say that it can't be learned, and you can learn it. And I consider myself more a business person than a technical visionary today. But that'd be the advice I'd give myself if I go.
Sure. I wish I had learned earlier the power of customer quotes. When in my first job, I wasn't that clear on the role of product management, and I encounter that today. People take new jobs and they're not really sure whether they're the boss or the servant or the support or the project manager. And surely, in some of the discussions about product managers being a very technical, tactical role, it seems that there's an awful lot of opinions going on. And I remember so vividly a wonderful quote that we used to use in my training class in my old company, which is from Jim Barksdale. He said, if we have the data, well, then let's look at the data. But if all we have is opinions, then we'll use mine. And I certainly see that. Yeah, isn't it? I see that so often when we now talk about, HIPPO, the highest important person's opinion. And so I remember one of the things we had at Pragmatic was wonderful. It was a coffee mug that said, "Your opinion, while interesting, is irrelevant." And my little spin on that was, hey guys, this is a left-handed mug. The message is not for everybody but you. The message is for you. Because in a world where there are plenty of opinions, the product manager is the one who needs to say, but here are what the facts are. 78% of our customers are reporting this problem, as opposed to, I talked to a guy, which, to a salesperson is a completed research study. Right. So if I could go back 20 years, I would certainly say, and my advice to anybody coming up is the sooner you get it into your head that the job is about digesting facts and having customer anecdotes at the ready. And you look at so many organizations, salespeople have huge credibility, and that's largely because they're the only ones who have customer experience. Except, as you said a moment ago, they have experience one at a time.
Right.
Product managers need to have personal experience that exceeds the salesperson's experience, that says not only these are the customers we have now and the prospects we're working, but the potential market as well. So anyway, my advice is the sooner you embrace that your role is to be expert on the market and their problems, the sooner you get yourself out of my opinion is this, let's fight with our opinions. I can fight with data. And it's not really about you're right, I'm wrong. It's about market facts are right and opinions.
I guess I'll start with you, Steve. The question is if you could go back and talk to the 25-year-old Steve, and give him some business advice, what would that advice be?
Take more chances. When we're young, we think that every step that we take is so vitally important that if we don't make the right job choice, if we don't choose the right educational program, that our life is going to be ruined. And in fact, we're in our sort of probably third iteration. I mean, I'm a civil engineer by education, and then I got into marketing and logistics and market research and consulting, and so you never know where your life is going to take you. Don't be afraid to make some mistakes along the way.
I think that I certainly received similar, advice to Steve from some of my mentors. And I would say that is, that's something really important. If you don't have a mentor, you need a mentor. I don't care how far you've come in your career, how successful you are. If you're at the top of the heap, there's still somebody who knows more than you do and can give you some guidance. Find that person and listen to them and take their advice.
Yeah, that's good.
Absolutely. And be a mentor. And better than that, be a sponsor. Open doors for people.
Yeah, that's good. Today's podcast was brought to you by Under 10 Consulting. Get your product teams up to speed quickly with the latest methods and a proven process tailored to your organization. Thank you for listening to this episode of Ready Product Radio, part of the Ready PDM network. This is when most podcasters ask you to leave a review on iTunes if you like the show. My only request is if you found the show entertaining, inspiring, or informative, please share it with a colleague or friend who may feel the same way. Also, note that the views expressed in this episode do not necessarily reflect my views or the views of the Ready PDM network. If you want yourself or your product to be ready, then keep your eyes on your markets, your ears to your customers, your mind on their experiences, both good and bad, and finally, keep your hearts in your products. Until next time, thank you for listening. You can contact us on Twitter at Ready Product Radio. That's RDYPRODUCTRADIO. And on the web at www.readyproductradio.com.
Gee, mate, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.